The next section of the contract we're going to talk about is our section 4, which is concrete. Now this particular section is all about the concrete floor and if there's any aprons, driveways, sidewalks, anything that go along with that concrete. But we are talking concrete, or flat work is another word that's usually used. So the questions that we'll obviously ask is what size concrete? Obviously that's going to, in almost every case, be the size of the building. So if we're doing a 2430 building, it's going to be 2430 concrete. But other things that are answered here is there an apron? And if so, what size? Is there a driveway? And if so, what size? Sidewalks, same thing. Then some of the specialty stuff that we ask about rebar grid. Let's say for instance you're on a wet site. In the previous section we talked about excavation. Maybe we put road fabric underneath to try to stabilize the site. If you have a wet site and you know that it has over the years have gotten very wet and soft, it may be a very good idea to not only put the road fabric in, but to put a rebar grid in. And rebar grids can be 1 foot or 2 foot on center, crossed rebar pieces throughout the whole concrete slab for the floor. Those questions are asked to help keep the continuity of that slab together, even though we already know it's going to crack and move. Even if you have plenty of rebar in it, it's still going to do that. But those questions are answered here. And then the grade beam size. The grade beam on what is considered a monolithic pour, in other words, a single pour that includes the footing around it, if you would. That area is called a grade beam, and we get what size grade beam is going to be around the building. The grade beam is important because it takes the weight of the building, the snow loads, everything else, and the walls take the brunt of that. Well, if the walls take the brunt of that, it's down on that concrete along those edges. And that's why the grade beam area is a thickened area with rebar throughout, so it helps distribute that weight. So those questions are answered there on what size grade beam is required or expected to be poured. And different areas of code, it could be the different cities within the states or the different states all together may have different sizes that are required, and we just identify what we are going to do so everybody's on the same page there. Other information that we do carry in this concrete section is if there's going to be in-floor heat. Let's say for instance we're doing a home or a cabin and we're pouring that concrete. They might have in-floor heat, so we have to know that. So when we are there and set up all of our forms, and most likely there will be foam in there at that point, we leave to allow the plumber time to get everything set up properly, get that in-floor heat in properly before we go ahead and pour the floor. The other information that we have is nylon fibers is an area. Nylon fibers is something a lot of people use it in place of steel rebar. We do not. We like it in addition to rebar. We think steel is that very strong hinge. Once that concrete cracks and the floor is moving around, that's why it's called a floating floor. As it moves around and cracks, that rebar is real key part of that hinging process. But with that, the fiber cement and the mesh in it, obviously the steel mesh kind of helps that hinging effect. And the fibers just help reinforce it all that much more if it's requested by the homeowner. Then there's a slope around owner's drain. So for instance, if you're going to put a drain in your slab and have it drained out somewhere, there is a cost and an identifier that we expect to see a drain there that we have to hand shape around that. And there is some shaping skills that are required to do that properly to make it look good when it's all finished. So that is answered here too. And then I mentioned a little bit about the foam, and then there's the 3 different styles of foam or types of foam, locations of foam if you would. That is foam under the slab, that's under the whole thing. Then there's foam vertically along the grade beam or footing area. And then there's the perimeter foam or foam that's underneath the grade on the outside of the garage and tapers down and away from the building. And those are key elements in called a shallow frost foundation. In the case it might be a home or a dwelling. that is a requirement, and those are answered here in the concrete section because the concrete crew is the one dealing with all that. So that's what I have in the concrete area today. Have yourself a nice one.